Welcome to the Stormsurf Video Surf Forecast for the week starting Monday, May 26th. Brought to you by Vunabaka.com, a new surf and residential community in the islands of Fiji. We'll take a quick look at the North Pacific Significant Wave Height chart. Basically nothing going on with the exception of this one area south of Baja. This is Hurricane Amanda. Winds were up to 135 knots, that's 155 miles an hour, and it was drifting north. That was as of yesterday on Sunday, the 12Z update. That should be enough. It was actually in the Southern California swell window on about 161 degrees. That should be enough to send small swell, period, in the 15-second range up into Southern California by Tuesday evening. But otherwise, very calm, placid pattern. Summer has taken over. All focus is on the southern hemisphere. And looking at the southern hemisphere again, we can see Amanda here north of the equator. But down south, there's bits of seas, but nothing really significant. Nothing aimed up in either Hawaii or in towards the U.S. coast. And for that matter, not a whole lot even aimed at Chile. These are 20-foot seas, 30-foot seas here, just pushing basically down into Antarctica. And a little bit of wind and fetch over here, creating seas barely 28 feet. But again, it's just barely aimed north. Maybe Tahiti will get a little energy. Maybe even Hawaii could get a little sideband energy. But at this point, the pattern does not look particularly inspiring. Let's go take a look at the jet stream and see what's going on aloft. So this is our jet stream level chart. These are winds and wind vectors at above 30,000 feet, 250 millibar level. The winds at this level of the atmosphere tend to help support the formation of gale development down at lower levels in the atmosphere and also steer the direction of those gales when they form. Right now what we have is sort of almost a little trough. It's almost pinched off here just east of New Zealand. This created a small fetch area in lower levels of the atmosphere and those seas that we just saw, barely 28 feet. Otherwise we have a good amount of wind, but it's blowing in the wrong direction. It's blowing south, and this is a ridge pushing down towards Antarctica, and as we put this into motion, we'll see what happens here. It just basically crashes into the Antarctic ice sheet down here around a little bit below 65 south, and that will shut down gale development for the central Pacific, and this is 18 hours out. A little bit of a trough trying to get going here though in the far southeast Pacific, for the most part east of the Southern California swell window, which would be about 117. But maybe this could be supportive of something relative to Chile and Peru. Notice here a very steep trough. That is, a trough is winds pushing to the north, creating this kind of a bow pattern. So that could support low pressure development at the surface with fetch aimed up in this direction. But again, here's yet another almost looking ridge thing developing south of New Zealand on Tuesday. Put that into motion, and basically the whole jet just starts crashing towards Antarctica. Ross ice shelf would be right in here. Just not looking favorable at all. A little bit of a trough trying to form here, but not even sure that's completely clear of ice. So that doesn't look good. Then here's another thing that tries to form like a trough, but kind of washes out before it really gets well organized. There you go. Now we're into Friday already, Friday night. This is looking a little bit better. This almost looks like a trough here. So that could be supportive of gale development. But notice this huge ridge. In fact, I'm going to push this back in time. So watch these winds here. Watch them just crash right into Antarctica and just plow right in. So that's going to shut all gale development down in this region. But then also on Friday, notice we were talking about this trough here. There's also yet another trough trying to form off southern Chile, but it doesn't make much headway. But then, interesting, after the ridge starts to clear out, we get a bit more of a trophy pattern in the central Pacific. Not a lot of wind energy associated with it, but the thought is about a week out, maybe there could be some support for gale development in here. At least all the ridge is cleared out. We got a bit of a trough, not particularly great wind energy pushing up into it, but it's a start. Next, let's take a look at surface level winds, surface level pressure, and it is the winds at the ocean surface that generate raw seas, which in turn generate swell as those raw seas propagate away from the fetch and the wind that generated them. So we're actually going back in time a little bit, 18Z on Sunday. Here's that small fetch we talked about earlier, 45 knot winds just east of New Zealand. They blew for, what was that, 12 hours, maybe 18 hours, and that's it, and then started falling apart, and we're into Monday now, current time. Also notice high pressure aloft here, and notice the wind vectors here all pushing into Antarctica. So, though there are winds, it's all aimed in the wrong direction. Not very helpful. Put this into motion a little bit further. We have another gale, tries to get going here on Tuesday, pretty much almost out of the Southern California swell window. Let's see what it does. But there we got 45 knot fetch. It's clear of the ice just barely. And there's actually, notice you have the high pressure system here. You have low pressure here circulating like this, and that creates that kind of a fetch wrapping up the side of the high, pushing into these targets here, South America. So swell for that area seems quite possible. Not particularly strong, but a good bit of 45 knot winds. So that's good for probably 16, maybe 17 second period swell. Anyway, the high pressure pattern kind of dominates. The winds continue pushing towards the Antarctic in our most favored region. Then low pressure again tries to get forming under New Zealand on Friday. Little bit of 40 knot winds. That's a very small area. Looking much better organized there by Friday night into Saturday. That's 50 knot winds there, and that appears to be clear of Antarctic ice too, so that is hopeful. If we were to look at it, it is pushing up the Great Circle paths to Northern California, but again via New Zealand. Same deal for Southern California as well. What's that? 203, actually it might be clear. 204, yeah, that is clear for Southern California. Look at Costa Rica, free and clear. Look at those paths right there. Just completely bypasses Tahiti. So that's a good optional destination. And of course, take a look at Peru, and actually almost aimed to north for Peru. Interesting. Anyway, put this into motion a little bit further. That continues on, working its way across into the Central Pacific, and then we are approaching the end of the model run. 35 knot winds, not particularly impressive. You want to see a larger fetch area than that. Whoops, and then the thing pretty much, that's the end of the week forecast. So it looks like there's one candidate at least for the California area, and also something for South America. Let's go back to the significant wave height charts now. Okay, so let's go see what effect those winds have on the ocean's surface in terms of producing swell. First, the gale that we noticed here in the far southeast Pacific, 34-foot seas, just barely, blowing up 40-foot seas, and this is on Wednesday morning. Let's take a look relative to Peru. And aimed pretty well right there. That's also good for Chile as well, and in fairly close proximity. We'll put this into motion a little bit further, see what happens. It starts lifting north. The main target here, I would say, would be southern Chile, assuming the thing forms as projected. That's not bad. And then we watch this next gale projected. Here we go, under New Zealand, free and clear of the ice. We're on Friday evening, little micro area, 40-foot seas, 42-foot seas. Let's put this back. Probably peaked right about there. Let's see, relative to Northern California, again, what is that, 207 probably. So that's in the Tahiti swell shadow. Southern California, free and clear, just barely on the east side, and we'll put this into motion, see what happens. It actually gets a little bit of traction lifting northeast, so that's good for, again, another pulse of background southern hemi swell. Probably not much different than what we've been seeing for the past week or so. Something to ride into California, but nothing more. And then that system kind of fades out, and we're into a week out, and that's pretty much it. So at least there is one system on the target. Let's put this back. So that would be on that's Saturday, so it'd be about 8 days from Saturday, or a week from from, oh man, it's a ways out, so it's something to monitor, but nothing to get too excited about yet. Anyway, that's sort of it for the Pacific. A little bit of something. Chile probably better positioned, and Peru for that other storm that is outside of the Southern California swell window. Let's go take a look at the long-term synopsis and forecast. And by long-term, we're talking not a week or two out, but more like months out. We're really looking for the presence of El Nino or La Nina, changes in the Southern Oscillation Index. We're not so much focused on the MJO anymore, as the MJO is not an influencer so much in the Southern Hemisphere weather pattern. It's more in the Northern Hemisphere in the winter months. Specifically related to the Gulf of Alaska and the Dateline region in the Pacific. Right now, the daily Southern Oscillation Index, the difference in pressure between Darwin and Tahiti, 8.9, kind of on the positive side. It's been a kind of a bit of a long run here of semi-positive numbers. The 30-day running average suggests, well, it's 1.93, which is weekly positive, which sort of hints at just a neutral pattern. And then the 90-day running average, minus 1.76, so it's as weak in the other direction. All this suggests we're basically in a neutral MJO pattern. There is no El Nino occurring, at least per these numbers. No La Nina either, just kind of a dead neutral pattern. Here's a graphical analysis of the 30-day SOI running average. Back in July 2012, we thought we were in the start of El Nino, but it fell apart. Then the summer of 2013, we went the other extreme, pretty much positive numbers and hints of La Nina. Then in January, we had this long crash. We were in pretty good negative numbers. It looked like El Nino was going. Now the SOI kind of has bounced back, and again, as we said, hovering in neutral. So we're neither one way or the other at this point in time. Next, we look at surfaced winds in the West Pacific. Specifically, these are not actual winds, but the deviation from normal. We're looking for westerly anomalies. Westerly anomalies can create Kelvin waves. That is, they push warm water from the ocean surface to depth, and then that tracks to the east, gurgles up off the Galapagos Islands, warm surface waters there, and feeds or creates El Nino. At this point in time, it's pretty much a dead neutral wind pattern. So weak trades is what this suggests, or no wind at all. This is for this time of year. And then looking east, where's Hawaii? Hawaii is right there. Dateline is here. Galapagos are right here, and South America right there. Pretty much a neutral pattern as well, maybe light westerly anomalies, and here's the anomalies associated with Amanda here, but really not a whole lot going on. Next we go and take a look a week out, 3rd of June. Pretty much the same pattern. I mean, a little hint of easterly anomalies, but then westerly on the date line here. Here's Australia, of course. So, I mean, pretty much neutral there. We go on east and neutral again. And what we're really interested in is only a couple of degrees either side of the equator. That's where the winds make a difference in terms of developing Kelvin waves. If you start getting 10 degrees up or 10 degrees south, it doesn't really have any bearing. So as of this point in time, pretty much neutral, and forecast to be neutral for the next week. Here's another way of looking at the same thing. Here's some history from late April into current. The blues are easterly anomalies. The oranges are westerly anomalies. And I'm sorry, here's the date line. Here's about as far in the West Pacific as you can go, and here's about the Galapagos Islands roughly here. Basically, neutral, neutral. Here's our big inactive phase that we had in May, and it really didn't do a whole lot, which is good news, exactly what you want. And then the forecast for the next week, pretty much neutral as well. And then looking 2 weeks out, these are outgoing long wave radiation, but one can interpret that as westerly or easterly anomalies too. The oranges are what would be considered easterly anomalies, the inactive phase of the MJO. The blues are what could be considered westerly anomalies, and the active phase of the MJO. Pretty much a neutral pattern per the statistic model. is projected. If we look at the dynamic model, which would be equivalent to the GFS wind model and weather model that's used a lot and what also drives the wave models, it's showing a weak inactive phase anywhere from 5 to 10 days out. But in other charts that we saw, just because we have the reflectivity off the ocean does not necessarily translate into easterly wind anomalies at the ocean surface, which is good news, or at least that's the hope. And then finally, this is the long-term jet stream model, 40-day outlook. Not really believable, but it gives you a sense of sort of what the pattern is. Here's this inactive phase that the GFS model was hinting at, and that makes its course across the Pacific into about the 15th of June. At the same time, a new active phase of the MJO, very weak, forms, makes its way across the Pacific and makes landfall in about the 30th of June. So it generally looks like a very weak pattern. Weak pattern is fairly seasonal. That is, you don't expect a lot of MJO activity this time of year. But the other thing is, the weaker the MJO pattern, that also is sort of a symptom of a developing El Nino. When the MJO just disappears, that tends to suggest that some sort of El Nino activity is in play. Whether this reaches that threshold of weakness is still to be determined. Next, let's take a look at sea surface level temperature anomalies. The warm signature that we've been monitoring continues to evolve, not particularly quickly or strongly, but it is evolving. Clearly, there is warmer than normal water, anywhere from 1 to 2 to 2.5 or more degrees, the whole way from the dateline over the Galapagos into Ecuador. These anomalies here are in the 2.5, actually 2.7, 2.8 degrees above normal range, which is pretty good. Notice there's warm water all pulled up off the U.S. West Coast. That is warmer than normal for this time of year, warmer than normal over Hawaii. The other interesting thing is there's sort of a sympathetic warm pool developing off of Africa, same region, you know, a mirror image sort of thing going on in the Atlantic, which is good. Lots of warm water here. This is the only cool pool, and even it is, you know, a half a degree or so, maybe a degree here in its coolest spot. So, but this is what we're interested in, and it goes now about 5 degrees either side of the equator. What we really want to see is temperatures here warm up above the 3-degree mark, preferably 3.5. If an El Nino that was going to form similar to the 97 one, which of course is a wild hope. That was the strongest El Nino ever on record. And this one does not appear to be shaping up that way, but it is substantial and it is warm, and these anomalies for this point in time in year are basically in there with the 82, 83 El Nino for this time of year. So it's kind of interesting to see how this will evolve. Of course, you know, it could all fall apart, but as of right now, there is a developing warm signature, and this is a good sign. If this continues and continues to warm here specifically, it will start changing the atmosphere above it, and then that is what forms El Nino. Then the Southern Oscillation Index, the difference in pressure between here and here, you'll start seeing that moving negative as the warm water affects the atmosphere. The atmosphere in turn starts probably creating more westerly anomalies here over the dateline, and then reinforces the existing pattern. So that's kind of what you're hoping for. Whether that will happen or not, it's too early to know, but that's what we're watching. And then here we can loop this just a little bit. We'll start the middle of May and just put this into motion. You can see, you can see the warm pool evolving here. We'll go backwards one more time. Okay, through the whole month of May, you can see the warm pool evolving, not markedly so, but it's getting there, and slow and steady is good. We'll take whatever we can get. Here's another look at surface temperatures. Here's actual surface temperature, actual winds, and here is anomalies from normal. And again, dateline is here, far west Pacific is here, Galapagos are about here, and this is the equator here. So you have 1 degree above normal anomalies pretty much straddling the entire width of the equator with half a degree or better, at least 5 north and 5 south. So that's what you want to see. Here's the really interesting part. Notice the wind vectors here are actually blowing very weakly out of the west, whereas the previous charts we saw suggested neutral, if not maybe light easterly anomalies. These vectors are coming from the buoy array that's moored here along the equator. These are hard sensors on the ocean surface, or a couple of meters above the ocean surface. So this is probably closer to the ground truth than any other projections from models or whatnot. So because the model is up at the I think those are 850 millibar winds, which is certainly up in the atmosphere. It's nowhere near even 100 feet of the ocean surface. So this is probably a better sense of what's actually going on. We want to see westerly anomalies develop here to continue the warm water flow. Let's go take a look at subsurface data. Here's actual water temperatures. Here's anomalies from normal for this time of year. Again, large warm pool fueled by multiple westerly wind bursts, giant Kelvin wave currently impacting the Galapagos Islands, with additional light warm water out towards the dateline heading this way. What we need is another westerly wind burst to sort of start pushing some more warm water in this direction. Also notice the developing cool pool here. In the big El Niños of past, water at some point gets much cooler here. We haven't done the study to say exactly when, but this is probably not too far off the mark time-wise for if you were in an El Nino syndrome for cool water to start developing in the West Pacific. In essence, all the warm water in the West Pacific sloshes east at depth and impacts the South American coast, and that's exactly what we're seeing now. And here's another view, same thing. This is more a model view. Notice it still shows the warm water pipe here on the dateline, warm water sinking, feeding into this vast warm pool here. This is not as warm as it was a month ago, but still solid 4 or 5 degree above normal temperature. This is probably 2 months at least worth of water still to gurgle up to the surface. So warming is occurring, and we expect it to continue for well into the summer. And ultimately, as the waters warm off of Ecuador and the Galapagos, we expect to see the Southern Oscillation Index start diving south as the atmosphere responds to those warmer waters. And when that happens, then you have the fuel to form for fall storms, and even to start fueling tropical development. So that's the other thing here. Amanda is a significantly strong storm. It only was Cat 5 status for basically 6 hours, but still, to have that happen, and we're not even in June yet, speaks to the warm water that is already present off of Central America. One would expect to see more of those sorts of storms form. And then later in the year, in the middle summer, later summer, we would expect to start seeing westerly wind bursts develop again, and perhaps fuel tropical development in the West Pacific. Those would get caught by the increasing jet stream in the North Pacific, and those tropical systems would recurve, come towards the dateline, push towards the U.S. West Coast, and that would be the classic El Nino scenario. Extratropical storms pouring into the Gulf of Alaska, and you get an early jump start on the fall season, but we're way ahead of ourselves. You wouldn't even see signs of that till the August time frame. So for now, things are looking pretty good long-term wise in regards to the evolution of perhaps El Nino. So that kind of wraps it up for this week. The focus is one more southern hemi swell due into California in the next day or two. Another one projected southeast of New Zealand on the Friday-Saturday time frame, with swell resulting about 8 days after that. And so that's it. Some swell to look forward to, nothing huge. And then again, continuing to watch the evolution of perhaps El Nino, which would be a good thing and set us up for the fall and the winter ahead. Thanks for watching. We'll do this again next week, same time, same channel, and many thanks to our friends at VunaBaka.com for sponsoring this video surf forecast. Check them out, VunaBaka.com. Thanks.